2, 1.
7 things you probably didn't know you need to know. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Standout.
Over the next 7 minutes or so, we'll look back at a week that saw more strikes than a works bowling night out as industrial action ramps up in the run-up to Christmas. With Strep A infections rising, parents are worried about antibiotic supplies, and American basketball star Brittany Griner freed from Russian prison. It's been another busy week, and we'll get you up to speed in next to no time. This is the Standout 7 from the Smart 7. Don't forget to hit the follow button to get your daily updates at 7 a.m. It's been another week of strike announcements and industrial action as Christmas gets ever closer. Thousands of ambulance workers and other NHS staff are due to walk out on the 21st and again on the 28th, whilst accusing the government of ignoring pleas for a decent pay rise. A nursing strike's due to happen around the same time. The Unite Union's One Kesab told Sky News they've no choice but to walk out, with some workers now relying on food banks.
It takes, I think, some brass neck for ministers who have subsidised lunches to be telling our members who are now relying on food banks that they shouldn't be taking action on pay, and to somehow imply that we are holding the country to ransom.
And after pay talks broke down, RMT members at Network Rail also announced fresh industrial action starting on the 24th of December and returning to work on the 27th. Downing Street says planning meetings are underway to try and reduce the impact. The Transport Secretary Mark Harper called the announcement incredibly disappointing and said the government's played its part.
The government's done what it did, which is facilitate a new improved offer, which I think most people will think that if the response to that is to call more strikes, I think people will think the RMT is not being reasonable.
Airport border guards also joined the list of those preparing to strike across Christmas on Wednesday, which could affect a third of flight departures over the Christmas period. Rishi Sunak's pledged to introduce tough new legislation to limit the impacts of strikes, but why are the government refusing to negotiate, you might ask? Well, Health Secretary Stephen Barclay has the answer. Or excuse, you decide.
If everyone in the public sector were to receive a pay rise in line with inflation, that would cost an extra £28 billion, an extra £1,000 per household. And at a time of huge cost of living pressures, it's important we get that balance right.
But RMT union boss Mick Lynch told Sky's Kay Burley more can be done to reach a solution.
Are you saying that this government is purposefully scuppering any chance of a deal?
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying. They have torpedoed the negotiations and they have told the companies to take on the strikes.
Strep A has now claimed the life of 15 children across the UK since September. Schools Minister Nick Gibbs says antibiotics could be given to entire year groups where there are cases of the bacterial infection to stop it spreading.
And what the UK Health and Security Agency are doing is they're working closely with the schools involved and giving very specific advice to those schools, which may involve use of penicillin and so on. Deputy Director of the UK Health Security Agency, Dr Colin Brown, says it's hard to know what's causing the jump in cases.
I think it's difficult to know. It's probably multifactorial. We're seeing over the last number of years altered presentations and differences in immunity for a variety of infections.
There have been consistent reports that some doctors and pharmacists are having difficulty sourcing penicillin. Health Secretary Steve Barclay doesn't seem worried though. He's apparently been reassured there's enough to go round.
As of last night when we checked, they said they could reassure us that they've got good stock and we're moving that around to meet demand.
But pharmacist Dr Layla Hanbeck isn't convinced. She says that's not what's happening on the ground.
Nope. There is a patchy supply. When you go online to order these medicines, particularly the liquid ones for children, the product is out of stock. And this is happening all over the country.
This week saw more Russian attacks on Ukrainian power infrastructure, with 4 people killed in Kyiv as missile strikes continued. The Ukrainian army was also busy as 2 Russian air bases appeared to be hit by drone attacks hundreds of miles across the border. On Ukrainian Armed Forces Day, President Volodymyr Zelensky met with soldiers on the front lines.
I wish you good health. I wish you and your loved ones all the best. This is what you defend today and give to us.
Wednesday saw Zelensky in the spirit of Ukraine named as Time magazine's 2022 Person of the Year. The award goes to an event or person deemed to have had the most influence on global events over the past 12 months, and the magazine's editor said this year was a no-brainer amid the Russian war on Ukraine. Meanwhile, President Putin seems to be escalating nuclear tensions once again. He spoke at Russia's annual Human Rights Council meeting, clarifying that there would be no further mobilisation of troops at the moment, and that while Russia had not gone mad, he's still not ruling out the option of going nuclear. He also appeared to be enjoying himself at an awards ceremony in the Kremlin on Thursday, clutching a champagne glass, and apparently drunk Putin vowed to continue the strikes.
There's a lot of talk right now about our strikes against the energy infrastructure of a neighboring country. Yes, we are doing it, but who started it? Who struck the Crimean Bridge?
The government is struggling to contain the escalating scandal over PPE. Tory peer Michelle Mone, who had been at the centre of claims over PPE supply, has now taken a leave of absence from the House of Lords, which has led to the government announcing she's lost the whip by default. Labour's Shadow Levelling Up Secretary Lisa Nandy says the government's handling of PPE and the level of preparation for the COVID pandemic was simply not good enough.
But one of the reasons that we needed PPE really quickly is because the government had pandemic plan that they didn't appear to know about, and when the pandemic hit they were completely unprepared.
Director of the Good Law Project Julian Morham gave an insight into what really went on and the corruption PPE companies participated in.
We've been able to show that proximity to Conservative Party ministers had an effect. If you were close to Conservative Party ministers, you were much more likely to win contracts.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak appears to be trying to distance himself from the whole scandal, even though he was Chancellor throughout the period. At Prime Minister's Question Time, he sounded like he's just seen a newspaper for the first time in a week.
Like everyone else, I was absolutely shocked to read about the allegations. It's absolutely right that she is no longer attending the House of Lords and therefore no longer has the Conservative whip.
Still to come on the Standout 7, James Cameron talks Avatar and tributes to a Cheers star. Right after this. Welcome back.
After 294 days in Russian captivity, US basketball star Brittany Griner was released on Thursday in a prisoner swap for Russian arms dealer Victor Bout. The Phoenix Mercury player was arrested at a Moscow airport in February for alleged possession of cannabis oil cartridges and was sentenced to 9 years in prison on drug charges at a controversial Russian trial in July. US President Joe Biden seemed relieved as he confirmed her release in a press conference on Thursday.
She's safe. She's on a plane. She's on her way home. After months of being unjustly detained in Russia, held under intolerable circumstances, Brittany will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along.
And Brittany's wife, Sherelle Griner, took the opportunity to advocate for the release of other US prisoners held in Russian captivity, including Paul Whelan, who was imprisoned 3 years ago on espionage charges.
Today, my family is whole, but as you all are aware, there's so many other families who are not whole, and so BG and I will remain committed to the work of getting every American home, including Paul.
The highly anticipated Avatar sequel finally had its world premiere in London on Tuesday night, more than a decade on from the original sci-fi epic. Kate Winslet joins the cast for Avatar: The Way of the Water, along with newcomers Michelle Yeoh, Vin Diesel and Edie Falco. It's due out in cinemas next Friday, and director James Cameron told The One Show why he chose blue for the characters.
Well, I mean, all the other colors were taken, you know, if you think about it. The Hulk is green, SpongeBob was yellow, right? We're all various shades of pink and brown, and so pretty much blue was left. Blue.
Kirstie Alley, the Emmy-winning Cheers actress and well-known Scientologist, has died aged 71 after a brief battle with cancer. Alley rose to fame in 1987 for her role as Rebecca in the long-running hit sitcom and starred in Look Who's Talking with John Travolta and Star Trek The Return of Khan. A contestant in 2018 Celebrity Big Brother UK, Alley was also known for being a senior member of the Church of Scientology and more lately for her Trump-supporting right-wing views. Here she is speaking about her time in Cheers.
I could never remember my lines. My lines were written. If you saw the Cheers bar, I used to carry a cigar box with me, and my lines were always in my cigar box.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came.
This has been the Standout 7, the best of the week from the Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow, 7 a.m. with the Sunday 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.